Well, this is interesting. Why Tesla and other EV makers are betting big on gigacasting, from CNBS.
The world needs cheaper EVs, but Tesla has historically been the only automaker outside China making electric vehicles profitably. The rest are
Yo, already I am... What's happening? Am I still in the same version of the simulation? Have we just heard something that's accurate about Tesla and the wider electric vehicle industry on CNBS at the very opening of this video? This is the same CNBS who historically, for whatever reason, it must have nothing to do with the fact that their major advertisers are automotive companies that Tesla's putting out of business, who historically have been rather either, let's just be real here, inaccurate, obviously through errors of omission, or possibly even deceptive when it relates to Tesla. The narrative, the competition's coming, demand is collapsing, Tesla's going bankrupt. Look, I've been following this company for a long time. And historically, CNBS, widely speaking, almost everyone who's ever appeared, guest and members on the panel have been very negative of the company, often saying things that are completely false. And again, just to be clear, companies like Ford and General Motors and the Stellantis brands spend tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars per year advertising in the media. And the media knows that, of course, there are some high IQ morons out there who would claim that this would never even slightly impact an editorial bias, which is utter delusion. So for CNBS, right out of the gates, to admit that Tesla's the only company producing electric vehicles profitably outside of China, which kind of feels, I feel like I've been saying that, because it's true. This could be a breakthrough moment in a narrative shift. More stunning still, look at this headline on screen now. One of the biggest advertisers on CNBS, Ford, lost $130,000 on every EV it sold in the first quarter. Just a friendly reminder to any of the short-term traders panicking about Tesla gross automotive margins, when Ford's losing $130,000 a pop on every electric vehicle sold at the beginning of this year.
bleeding money, and everyone is trying to cut costs and move faster. Megacasting, or gigacasting as it's often called, is the latest manufacturing technique promising to do exactly that: make EVs cheaper, lighter, and simpler. Tesla has been credited with pioneering the method.
I think it's basically going to be how all cars are made in the future.
Now, Musk is right, although it doesn't take a genius to figure this out, because if you're not doing this, you're not going to be competitive and you're not going to be solvent, because you'll go out of business because you can't produce your vehicles fast enough or cheap enough to compete in markets with companies that are producing them with huge castings. Therefore, rest in fucking peace. And to be clear, it was many years ago that Tesla first began using these large castings. Almost immediately, some very smart Chinese automotive manufacturers attempted to copy, and they've been making great progress. And at the time of these huge castings first starting to appear, I made special note of the fact that Tesla, who previously everyone laughed at, these Silicon Valley nerds don't understand anything about manufacturing vehicles, went from the laughingstock of the automotive industry. Now keep in mind, the electronics were next level. Software was next level. The thermal management of the batteries next level. Stunning stuff. However, Tesla's biggest weakness in the early days was undoubtedly slapping shit together in the form of a vehicle. All of the surface level stuff. That was the least important thing. Having the software right was much more important. The battery was much more important. Tesla prioritized things logically. However, in the span of just a few years, Tesla went from the laughingstock of the automotive industry, keeping in mind that the automotive industry was looking at what Tesla was doing and assuming that they were making cars instead of computers on wheels. But the car-related stuff that Tesla was doing on their computers on wheels, everyone's going, look, the pedal gaps, oh, they don't even know how to, look at all those welds, they don't know what they're doing. A few years later, from being laughed at to Tesla going, sit down, bitch, and let daddy show you how it's done. Next minute, huge innovations to massively reduce costs. Wait, speed up how quickly a vehicle could be produced and so on. So from laughingstock of the automotive industry to showing everyone how it's done in just a few years. As Sandy Munro was rightly pointed out, Tesla moves at the speed of light. Their rate of innovation is so fast, they're untouchable. But companies are at least trying to catch up years later.
Rivals are already sinking billions and trying to jump on the bandwagon.
If you want to make an efficient electrified car, you need to have more aluminum, you need to have less parts, you need to have less complexity, and you end up in, okay, let's look at on how we can use casting in a better way. It's a very logical kind of process step for us in our technology transformation, I would say.
Details on how much each is spending are scant, but the total market for die casting, which includes parts of all sizes, is expected to grow 70% in less than a decade. That's $126 billion by 2032.
I see tons of opportunities going forward. So we can increase the amount of aluminum and reduce the weight of the vehicle, which in the end is CO2 and range for the customer.
Researchers agree megacasting is potentially revolutionary, if it works.
I'm not entirely sure where they're going with this. I'm assuming these, quote, researchers are aware of the, by now, millions of vehicles driving around today featuring these huge castings. It's no longer a question of if they work.
But there are some serious challenges.
To say this is the future of car production can be, but the realization showed that the problems are more expensive and we should go back to the conventional way. So this is really an open game at the moment.
Now, one thing I do want to say on this, it is true that you need to be producing a single vehicle, at least a single cast part. Maybe you can have parts in common between different vehicles on a similar platform. But you do need to be at a certain volume for these large castings to actually make financial sense. We are unlikely to see huge cast parts on vehicles that in a single year only sell in the tens of thousands of units. It's not going to make financial sense to do this because the machines are fucking expensive. But for high volume vehicles, which should be the bread and butter of any company that wants to remain solvent, the investment will more than pay for itself.
Megacasting, or as Tesla calls it, gigacasting, is a form of die casting. It's a common manufacturing technique that can be used to make all sorts of things, including car parts. The process is, fundamentally, simple. You fill a high-pressure mold with a substance, such as molten aluminum, and form a cast. After some cutting and finishing, the part is ready to go. While casting has been used to make smaller parts for a long time, many of the larger parts on a vehicle have historically been made out of stamped steel pieces, typically welded or joined together. But at some point, Tesla started pushing the limits of the casting technique and now uses large gigacasts in the Model Y, Model 3, and the Cybertruck. In the 3 and the Y, large sections of the front and the back of the vehicle are made out of single cast.
Tesla's really the first one to go and have very large, high-pressure die-cast aluminum castings in cars to replace large sections of what are traditionally stamped steel or stamped aluminum structures.
So we know this is true, but it is worth pondering. Why was it that no other company prior to Tesla did this? Now let's actually think about this question and try to answer it. Possibility number one, they're too dumb to even consider it. Now it's true. Typically, automotive companies are not where you will find the world's best and brightest engineers. I mean, there's some exceptions, but typically these people are working in aerospace, on AI, cutting-edge technology, and/or for Elon, which is all of the above. But you see, any company could have done this. The automotive industry, instead of huge innovations like massive castings, instead, for decades, the most innovation you'll typically see year over year is the addition of a single new cup holder in the latest year model of a vehicle. So maybe they were just too dumb to pull this off, and there's probably at least a decent-sized grain of truth in that. However, the more reasonable explanation is the structure of these companies. Their very DNA is counter to innovation. No doubt, there will have been many smart, bright engineers working at these companies who thought, hey guys, we could probably make a fucking massive casting and save a lot of money and time. And then this presumably youthful, fairly smart engineer talks to one of the higher-ups and goes, hey, I got this idea. At which point the higher-up says, shut the fuck up and just do your job, bitch. Don't you understand? You want to get fired? No? Then shut the fuck up and just do what we've always done, bitch. In fact, these kind of occurrences are what causes people like Sandy Munro to go out on his own and start Munro & Associates instead of continuing to work for clowns at automotive companies. This is a cultural issue. These companies are petrified of change. In fact, not just petrified of. Change is illegal. It's a fireable offense. If you have any new ideas, anything that could save the company hundreds of millions of dollars, better keep it to yourself or you might lose your fucking job. I'm not even joking. So imagine now, for a moment, that these companies, inept, incompetent, and or just too scared to change. Everything's fine until a company like Tesla comes along and starts out innovating and disrupting and eating their lunch. And then suddenly they start to panic. And now what? Changing the culture of these companies, ending the bureaucracy, enabling this pace of innovation. It's not a matter of just snapping your fingers. No. In fact, expecting traditional automotive manufacturers who've been doing the same shit for decades to not only begin to copy some of Tesla's innovations, but to shift their entire culture such that the company itself begins innovating at a comparable pace to Tesla just to stay in second, third, or 50th place, as opposed to lose more ground, but just try and keep pace, but never quite catch up. That's like expecting a 42-year-old, self-hating, basement-dwelling adult virgin to miraculously transform into a total Chad overnight and start dating supermodels. Good luck.
The front and rear portions of the early Model 3 chassis each contained more than 70 parts. The same two portions on the very similar Model Y are now just one part each.
The cast rear body or front body is lighter, cheaper, better for noise, vibration, and harshness, much easier to manufacture.
Beginning with these big pieces allows Tesla to make tweaks that improve manufacturing efficiency.
We decided the floor should be a part of the car. The battery is the floor.
With that, Tesla says it can build different parts of the car at the same time, instead of piecing things together one by one. The carmaker claims it cut the size of its assembly line by 10%. Casting also provides the opportunity to rethink designs, allowing for a wider variety of shapes than stamped sheet metal. You could add support in places where it would be too difficult to do otherwise.
You can use less material to get the same amount of strength because you can customize the shape of it to be most advantageous for the loads that you're trying to carry.
The material matters too. Gigacasting is typically done with molten aluminum. Because EVs already carry such heavy battery packs, reducing weight as much as possible wherever you can is essential. Automakers have been using aluminum even in gas cars to improve fuel efficiency. Ford was able to drop 15% of the F-150's weight just by using an aluminum body instead of steel. But aluminum is more expensive than steel overall. Gigacasting can help close that gap. A gigacast component would be about 30% cheaper than trying to make the same part or assembly out of stamped aluminum. It would still cost about 50% more than stamped steel, but weight reduction, part reduction, and other advantages might make it worthwhile. Tesla has said that combining its gigacasting process with battery improvements can reduce vehicle weight by about 10%, increase range by 14%, and use 370 fewer parts. CNBC reached out to several automakers, however most said their plans for megacasting are in the very early stages. Eric Severinsen leads Volvo's electrification strategy. The company doesn't break out exactly how much.
Man, I tried to resist stopping here, but I couldn't. I'm just thinking about that statement. So CNBS, this is a brand new video. It's probably been in the works maybe the last month or so. Reach out to a shitload of legacy automotive manufacturers and they want to talk about their gigacasting plans. You know, the thing that Tesla began doing literally years, plural, years ago. And we hear that their plans, they're not even doing them yet, but their plans are still in very early stages. This is such an incredible insight into how slow moving these bureaucratic monstrosities are. And this is a window into how fucked these companies are attempting to transition to producing electric vehicles. If years after Tesla said, sit down, bitch, and let daddy show you how it's done, they still haven't started doing what daddy told them to do years ago, they're still in the early stages, and it's just a single aspect of manufacturing a vehicle, who in their right mind would imagine they have any hope of pivoting their entire business to profitably producing compelling electric vehicles at scale? It ain't gonna happen. But you knew that already, right?
It is investing in megacasting, but says it is a significant portion of the $1 billion it spent on a plant in Sweden.
Right now we are investing in Torslanda. That's the first plant out with this. Of course, long term, this is what we will have in all the plants where we are building these generation of vehicles.
The potential goes far beyond reducing weight or the number of needed parts. Automakers say gigacasting offers them a chance to change the way cars are made.
In the past, when you had to change your rear floor, you had to go in and change in 100 different tools. And now we need to change in one tool. So one, you have the machine there, one, you have the casting infrastructure. To actually do a change on the rear floor is much easier. And that offers you flexibility for product upgrades. It offers you for flexibility for, improvements of the products during the lifespan of it. So it has a lot of other benefits to it. Of course, it's a big investment to start with, but it is very much infrastructure. Once you have it, you can really get more flexibility in your products portfolios.
Tesla has said it wants to use gigacasting to completely change the way it makes vehicles. In the very early days of the automotive industry, cars were built one at a time, piece by piece, in a single place. Henry Ford changed all this by adopting the assembly line. This streamlined the process and allowed cars to be made continuously. This is still basically how vehicles are made today. First, sheet metal is stamped into the panels that make up the body. These are welded together. Then the doors get hung on the body. The whole thing goes through the paint shop and gets painted. Then the vehicle goes into final assembly. The body is married to the chassis or the frame. But at this point, oftentimes the doors might come off and they travel down a separate belt where window mechanisms, door trim panels, and other things are added. While the doors are off, the interior of the vehicle goes in. All the instrument panels, seats, carpets, everything. This, some say, is really inefficient. Those door openings make it tricky to fit all that equipment into the car. Robotic equipment helps, but it is tough to automate that process.
You still have to have people leaning into the vehicle at sometimes kind of awkward positions with torque wrenches and those things, putting all of this together. The unboxing is really blowing that apart.
So you start with some large gigacastings, attach components onto each of those, paint what is necessary, and then
kind of Lego fashion, everything comes together at the end. And the big advantage of this is that instead of trying to reach into a car, you have people working around something like the size of a table, so you could have 4 people working at the same time.
Just to be clear, people and or Optimus humanoid robots. Now, by the way, while I'm rambling, isn't it cool to hear some discussion about Tesla's modular manufacturing system on CNBS? However, what I really want to discuss and have you guys ponder is, if automotive companies who were shown by Daddy what they needed to do years ago still haven't even started doing it and are still in the quote early stages in terms of the large castings, how long do we think it might take before these companies even reach the early stages of trying to copy Tesla's forthcoming modular manufacturing system? I mean, how many years? It's got to be at least 5+, right? After all, this isn't a part in a vehicle. This is putting the whole thing together, an entirely new manufacturing system. Let's just say that it takes 5 years, and I think that's probably it's probably going to be longer than that, but let's just say 5 years. That will take us to 2029. Imagine if it's not until 2029 that these companies can start competing with Tesla on cost to produce compelling electric vehicles, and these will probably be in the sub $20,000 range 5 years from now, not inflation adjusted. On a scale of 1 to 10, how fucked would these companies be if Tesla has an absolutely astonishing cost advantage for more than half a decade? And the answer to that on a scale of 1 to 10 is about 4,000.
Same time, much better access, so there's lower labor content. It also takes up a much smaller footprint because I can get 4 people around this thing versus having to stretch it out.
Tesla has claimed it could reduce factory size by 40% and costs by 50%.
When you look at the 1 million to 2 million square foot, you're talking $700–800 million worth of potential investment on a large plant that you would have by being able to shrink that footprint.
Volvo installed gigapresses in its new $1 billion plant in Torslanda, Sweden, and at a plant it is building in Slovakia.
We have casting, we have the structural battery pack, and adaptations in the plant for full EV production. And the casting is a significant part of that.
Ford, General Motors, Toyota, Hyundai, Nissan, and others have all announced investments. Despite all this, reports have said Tesla has paused or even abandoned its plan to cast the underbody of its next-gen vehicle out of one piece. During its first quarter earnings call, Tesla said it does plan new models that will use aspects of the next-generation platform, but will be produced on current manufacturing lines, rather than on a new factory or production line, such as the one discussed on Investor Day 2023.
Now, just to be super clear, because there's been a lot of misreporting and or fake news and or blatant lies regarding this, Tesla will still be building factories, building production lines for this entirely new, completely modular manufacturing system for a subsequent generation of vehicle. However, as an interim step, Tesla will be implementing some of what they're doing and learning about their entirely modular manufacturing system in existing facilities on existing lines, which will allow them to reach annual production of about 3 million units per year, not far off doubling where they're at today, with very low capital investment because they don't need to build any new factories. This is just some tweaking to existing lines. Just wanted to be super clear on that. A lot of fake news was reported that Tesla was cancelling this next-gen vehicle and all the modular manufacturing system. Completely false.
The company did not elaborate on whether it planned an entirely new, cheaper vehicle, reportedly called the Model 2. Tesla VP of Engineering Lars Moravi said the unboxed manufacturing method it had described earlier came with risk because it required new production lines.
One argument for why they did this is because Tesla seems to be pivoting towards autonomy more, thanks to the success of the FSD version 12. And so what we're going to get in tandem with the next gen facility is this Robotaxi. So it has less to do with them being dissatisfied with the next-gen facility or gigacasting and more to do with their own internal pivot towards autonomy.
But there may also be technical challenges. First, there is some skepticism that casting very large parts will necessarily lead to significant weight reduction. Volk's own research indicates that extra-large castings could actually be 10% heavier than a comparable solution from sheet metal. There also appear to be higher scrap rates. For every 100 parts you cast, about 15 will, on average, be unusable due to...
Now, I'm not sure if they're going to explain here, but my spidey sense is tingling a little bit just the way this is being framed. Did you know, this is a crazy idea, but did you know that something that begins as molten, as in liquid metal, and then is injected into a huge mold, did you know that after, if it turns out that you need to scrap some of that, guess what? It can become molten again and get injected again. You can recycle the shit, the scraps. So just putting that out there. It'd be ideal if there was zero scrap rate, but nothing's going to be perfect. But just to be clear, it's not like that scrap ends up going in the bin.
Defects. For stamping, it's just 1 out of 100. Again, castings are made by filling a mold with molten aluminum, sometimes from more than one angle. But the larger a part is, the further into the mold the material has to travel. And as it is traveling through the mold, it is cooling. Filling the mold properly becomes more challenging, and then as the material cools, it contracts. That can create small voids in the molded part.
Because then those defects can become structural weak points within there. So that's a general challenge with any casting, and large castings, it gets a little bit worse.
Some evidence indicates cars with large gigacasts or megacasts either are or will be more expensive to repair.
It's in discussion with our German premium car makers like BMW and Volkswagen, whether we can't do this because our customers wouldn't accept that with this relatively often happened low-speed crash, we have an unrepairable car.
Repairability on a rear floor, for example, has one importance level versus repairability on a door, for example, if you would go for that one, right? What we're going after here are components which are very durable, and you don't repair them that much either. And if we need to, of course, there is a solution to repairing also a casted rear floor. It's not an easy operation, but it's definitely doable.
On its second quarter earnings call in 2023, VP of Engineering Moravi said Tesla can replace a rear cast rail on a Model Y 10 times cheaper and 3 times faster than a corresponding set of stamp parts.
My design team works with our collision repair team since we're closed loop on this with insurance, and we design specific parts that make it easier and faster to repair. And we have an incentive to do that because we have our own insurance and our own body shops. We expect that we'll continue to do this, and collision repair will continue to become cheaper and faster over time.
And we are actually able to change the details of the casting with inserts, and we actually do that all the time. So, because the inserts actually wear out and need to be replaced anyway, so we can actually make design changes to the inserts and tweak the castings.
I've been casting everything from, gearbox housings to engine parts and whatnot. And also, we have made this as a kind of a stepwise approach. So we have already in the second generation, the EX90, for example, a certain level of large casted aluminum parts. And now we're taking the next step of doing the rear floor. But the way on how to optimize your process and the way how to minimize the risks, I would say, is to take it a bit like that, step by step. So we are now doing the rear floor, we're not doing the full car, and we're building on the knowledge we already have created.
The question will be the next and the overnext Model Y still having these mega casting parts? Question mark.
So I think the key takeaway from today's video, surprisingly reasonable from CNBS, by the way, is that years after Tesla do a thing, we have Volvo starting to do a thing, credit to them, and we have just about every other automotive manufacturer still in the early planning stages of eventually, possibly, maybe considering implementing the thing. So I'm sure that these companies are going to be totally fine as the entire industry transitions from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles, and I'm sure they've definitely got a decent shot of catching up to Tesla, who are really slow and don't innovate and aren't years ahead. And I'm sure they'll be able to instantly copy Tesla's modular manufacturing system as well, so everything's going to be fine. They're not going bankrupt, and if you disagree with me, congratulations, you are sentient. Want more content? Early access? Bunch of perks? Click the links in the pinned comment. AG1 is awesome. I've been taking it daily now for more than 3 years. It's a great way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's packed full of vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus has prebiotics, probiotics, and adaptogens to improve gut health, regularity, and help your body handle stress. I'm always looking for an edge to help me feel and perform my best, which is why I haven't missed a day of AG1 for more than 3 years. And I haven't missed a daily video in more than 3 years. Must be a coincidence, right? Just try it and see how you feel. Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR and get yourself a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 travel packs. But don't take my word for it. This is what viewers of the channel had to say after trying AG1. I feel like I have a lot more energy since I started on AG1. By the way, viewer, that makes 2 of us. On to the next. Just got my AG1 in the mail. Legit feeling the effects after day 3. This viewer's been taking AG1 for 8 months and says, what an investment. Another. 3 months ago, I started AG1 and have been enjoying the evenness of alertness and energy that lasts the day. I just started the wife on it too. Are you convinced yet? I mean, hey, it's worth trying, right? Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR, or I can keep going, plenty more to come. This viewer, after about a month on AG1, definitely a lack of fatigue in the afternoon. Pleasant side effect is that my coffee intake has imploded and is almost down to 0. One more? Yeah, why not? I honestly feel younger and will be continuing to use AG1. This stuff really is crazy good. I didn't think it would be, but this stuff is awesome. It really is what everyone is saying. One more? Don't mind if I do. I've just received my 3rd month supply. I've drank it every day. I have so much energy throughout most of the day. I'm productive, started a new business, started socializing, refurbished a boat. It's no coincidence. Thank you for your persistence, your integrity, and your insights. Now look, these are not my words. These are not my testimonials. This is what you guys and girls are saying. Maybe it's 100% placebo effect. But even if that's the case, I think it's money well spent. Click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR and get yourself a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 travel packs. If you're still skeptical, hey, I don't blame you. Everyone on the planet seems to be promoting AG1 now, but guess what? They weren't nearly 3 years ago when I had this to say privately to my Patreon audience before there was a relationship, when I was asked about what I was doing for my health, energy, and so on. Just sharing my genuine, honest thoughts about a product I'd recently discovered that was at the time called Athletic Greens, now AG1. If I could only recommend one supplement to take, Athletic Greens, and I'm not getting paid to say this, Athletic Greens is a fucking game changer. I cannot believe how effective this is. No longer having a lack of energy in the afternoons. It's fucking amazing. There's only one thing to recommend seriously. Try Athletic Greens. You won't go back. So obviously, just like Elon Musk is a liar, a fraud, a con man, a scammer, a fake engineer, and Tesla's going bankrupt, you shouldn't trust that guy from about 3 years ago who, without any financial incentive, was promoting this product to his audience on Patreon when they were asking about health and what he's doing for supplements. Because obviously, there was some other reason he recommended that, obviously. Not sure what it was, but don't trust that guy. And all the testimonials, like my mental game's improved with AG1. I feel better than ever. I'm so impressed I've bought it for both my parents. I feel more focused and have better digestion. Incredible difference. No more afternoon fatigue. It's relieved gut issues. These are all just obviously fake testimonials from fake people. Right? Wrong. Just try it. Unless you hate yourself. If you hate yourself and you don't even want to risk possibly feeling better, this is not for you. But for everyone else, what's the worst that could happen? Try it for a month. See how you feel. It's a no-brainer. Just click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR. You'll get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and K2 plus 5 travel packs. And you'll take the colossal risk that maybe you might have a similar experience to some of the people whose testimonials we've read in this video.